morning and welcome everyone. We'd like to call today's Sports Authority Board of Directors meeting to order. We are very pleased to be here at Ford Ice Center. We want to thank Danny Butler and his team for hosting us and making us all feel very welcome this morning. As you are aware, the appeals process for any action of this board can be found at the top of today's agenda. We'd like to kick off the new year today by very briefly asking folks to go around the room and introduce themselves. We have some new faces with us, and oftentimes I think we assume everyone knows each other. So Quentin, if you could start us off just very quickly. If we could go around in the audience and ask you to introduce yourself and tell us who you represent.
Casimir, Preds alumni.
Rick Nashville Titans. Bob Flynn, Nissan Stadium Titans.
Walter with the South State Titans.
Eric Barr, Nashville Titans.
Keith Baker, Predators, Richmond. Dave Urso, Nashville Predators.
John Clayton, Nashville Predators.
Coach Scopel, Nashville Sounds.
Adam Mace, Nashville Sounds.
Will McCaskill, Nashville Predators, Fort Ice.
Beth Snyder, Nashville Predators.
Bob Lackey, Metro Finance.
Vicki Gray, Casimir.
Nat Hart, Nashville Predators.
Michelle Kelly, Nashville Predators.
Terry Helper.
David Chadwell, Nashville Predators.
Tom Gallo,
Natalie Aronson, Nashville Predators. Jill Ormandy, Nashville Predators.
Werner, Jerry Pittman.
Michelle Thornberry, Scott Hamilton LLC, Scott Hamilton Skating Gym.
Danny Butler, Preds, Fort Ice Center.
David Kells, Bruce Arena, Nashville Predators.
Scott Hamilton, Fort Ice Center.
Laura Schlesser, Fairgrounds.
I think in the back.
Janine Kaufman, Titans. Ethan Stevens, Nashville.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate that. Thank you for attending. We also have a new board member with us today, Leslie Fram. Leslie is a Senior Vice President with Country Music Television. Leslie oversees music strategy for CMT across all media platforms. She was the first woman to receive the T.J. Martell Award in recognition of outstanding performance in the music industry. She will, with no doubt, provide an interesting and helpful insight for us as we look to best serving and use of our Sports Authority facilities. On January 2nd, Leslie was confirmed by the Metro Council. Please welcome Leslie Fram
Thank you.
to the board.
Honored to be here. Thank you.
At that same council meeting, our board member Katana Starks was reappointed. Unfortunately, Coach Starks could not be with us today. She is had another commitment, but we are thinking of her, and we're certainly very pleased that she will continue to serve on this board. I also want to congratulate the Tennessee Titans on a winning season, which included an the season included a playoff win that was a wild game and a lot of fun to watch. And our Predators are in the middle of their season, and we know it will also be another successful one. And our friends at First Tennessee Park are getting ready to start their third season of baseball and fourth season of baseball and first season of professional soccer. So it's a big year, and thank you all for attending today. First up on our agenda, we have consideration of our meeting minutes from November. Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, the minutes are approved. Since our last board meeting, we also had a significant announcement. Major League Soccer announced its expansion plans to Music City. This was a transformative win and a true community effort. I know Laura's here from the Fair Board and the Sports Authority. Looks forward to continuing to work with the Fair Board and prepare for what will be our newest Major League sports facility here in Nashville. On December 20th, Commissioner Garber made the announcement. I was unable to attend, but I know the board was well represented, and
It was great.
Really good.
So excited. Loud. But
loud and fun. That's good. So a lot of great things happening in the sports community. And at this time, I will turn it over to Monica for our executive director's report.
Well, thank you. Ooh, I was about to ask if you could hear me, but I think I answered my own question. Thank you all for being here this morning. It's good to see everyone, especially since we didn't meet in December. I think about everything that Kim said, and clearly it's a really exciting time to be a sports fan in Nashville. We've got a lot of great things going on, and I want to thank all of you on this board and in the audience for the vast roles that you play kind of towards we're still kind of all Team Nashville. So thank you for everything that you all do. I also want to say welcome to Leslie.
Thank you.
We are
Appreciate
so
it.
excited
I'm excited.
to have you on board. We've had some time to talk, and she's going to come in and contribute. And so we're excited. It's a great appointment. I think it's really important that we have someone representing the music industry on our board when you consider what we do as a whole. So welcome. We're excited about what you're going to do and the contributions that you'll make. You have the agenda before you. Following my report, we will receive an MLS update from Mary Kavara, and we'll also receive a committee report from Margaret Ben, who chairs the Finance Committee. They met prior to this meeting at 9 a.m. and have some recommendations. Following the Finance Committee report, the authority is going to be asked to consider an amendment to the stadium lease agreement that will allow the city to submit a proposal to host some World Cup matches in 2026. And this is in connection with the U.S., Mexico, Canada bid. The board will then entertain some facility questions, which we do every month, and we will also receive the Ford Ice Center report, and then we'll hold our annual elections. Are there any questions about the agenda? No.
Thank you for that update, Monica. Next up, we have our Finance Committee, who is chaired by Margaret Bem, our Finance Chair.
Let's go to the MLS to Nashville.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I did skip one. All right, next up, before Finance Committee report, we do have our MLS update, and I believe Mary Kavara is here to bring us up to speed on where we are with the stadium.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. We're just so honored to be awarded an MLS club, and as many people have mentioned, December 20th was really quite a memorable day that I think many of us will never forget. At this stage, we are continuing to work with MLS, with our consultants, with everyone, just as we're in the heavy-duty planning phase and trying to work through timing and everything else that's needed to launch a professional MLS club. Based on our preliminary timing, we expect to come back to this board most likely in the second quarter as we work through the lease and other documents that need to come to this group for approval. And we are committed to allow sufficient time to let everybody review it and have questions. We know that in the fall, just due to the timing of MLS, we were somewhat rushed with things, and we'll make sure that there's enough time to go through that process. And just on behalf of our ownership group, we really look forward to working with you on this exciting opportunity for our city. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Questions?
Can I just congratulate Mary and your team and Will Alexander and his team? I mean,
what Nashville did to get an MLS team, and me being a fan of MLS and watching soccer, I really felt like I knew who the next 2 expansion cities would be. And when I saw an article in the paper saying Nashville wants an MLS team, I thought, I don't know when that's going to happen. And Nashville, we created this momentum, and we overtook cities that have been in play for years. And I'm just so proud of Nashville, so glad to be there on the 20th. So congratulations, I look forward to working together.
Thank you. We'll share it with our team.
Great job.
At this time, we will hear our Finance Committee report. Margaret.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Finance Committee met this morning for about an hour and 15 minutes, looking over the first 3 items that you see on your agenda regarding Bridgestone Arena. Really do appreciate Carlotte and Lisa and Kim joining Ralph and Dudley and me to go through the agenda. And of these 3 items, there are 2 that we have a recommendation for approval, but I'll take each of them separately. The first was the consideration of Bridgestone Arena proposed operating budget, which is on tab 3 in your materials. And our operating agreement with about Bridgestone Arena provides that Powers Management is to give us a proposed budget 18 months in advance. So this is always a process that is flexible. It's probably a great way to say that, because there is obviously some kind of projections that have to be made in order to think about what your budget's going to be during that time period. So we had a lot of questions. This proposed budget proposes a 16% increase in revenue. We did a lot of more discussion, and that has to do with 142 projected events. Of course, that's unknown, but we thought that was a reasonable projection. We spent a lot of time on the expenses and looking at that versus the budget of 2017 and the actual expenses that are there, and the budget for 18, and now this, of course, is the 19 budget. Through the past couple of years, Powers has given us more realistic numbers looking at the previous budget, and so we were very comfortable with this proposed budget. We particularly looked at the repair, maintenance, and the fact that Powers Management is assuming some of this responsibility by paying more of the maintenance than they have in previous years. So in looking at this budget and with all the questions that we had, we recommended to this board approval of this budget. So I make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries and is approved.
Thank you. So if you go to tab 4, you'll see on the first page of tab 4 a process that the Finance Committee approved in November for future capital projects of Bridgestone Arena. So we are in the January Sports Authority meeting part of that chart, which I'm very much in love with, as everybody on the Finance Committee knows. It's very, very helpful. And you will see then now on the next page here a summary of what these projects are all about. And what we talked about today were the SIF projects and their status. And these are projects that we approved last year, and they are ongoing. And you will see the status. There's a lot of detail there about what is being done in the report. And then you'll see the projects that are recommended by the Facility Assessment Report for 2018 and 19. And then also, we were very pleased to see that there were projects that would be recommended by the venue in 2020 and 2021. It was very helpful, as I said, to get the status of the SIP proposals in writing like this. But it's also helpful to know that they took the facility assessment study that was presented 10 months ago and looked at that study, looked at the timelines of that study, and then also incorporated that into what they gave us. And some of these capital improvements are capital improvements that cannot be utilized by the SIP fund. And so we had a discussion about what some of those immediate needs are that the SIP fund could help with, and what the SIF fund doesn't have enough money to assist with. I think it's helpful if you look at the completed capital projects, which is on the last 2 pages of this report. You will see that SIP has paid for a lot of capital projects since 2012, but you will also see in the reference to private that the Predators have also expended their funds in order to make some capital improvements. What you don't see here is that there are any funds from Metro Council from the capital improvements budget for the arena. And so we had a great discussion, I think, about what are we and what is our responsibility as a board to make more of a concerted effort and a push to try to get some of these improvements in the capital improvement fund, since it's been so long since Metro has approved funds in this way. So all of this seems to be coming together with the facility assessment fund of 10 months ago, and our request from our facilities to let us know what they need. And so hopefully we will be hearing from Monica and the Finance Committee more about this concerted push to put together something for these capital improvements for the arena. There's no action item, though, needed at this point. We, as the chart shows, we were just interested in making sure that we have a discussion about these capital improvements before the vote needs to come in a later time. So then now if you would go to the next action item, which is the consideration of the fiscal year 17 Bridgestone Arena audit and agreed upon procedures. I'd like to thank Vicki Gray, Craft CPA. I don't know if she's here. Did she stay? Yes, thank you for an excellent presentation and an excellent audit. We are always glad to hear that we have a clean audit, and then there are no errors found as far as what the agreed upon procedures audit showed. We also spent some time on the financial statements, just making sure that we understand the balance sheet and the revenues and operating expenses, so that we understand exactly what is being spent and why there might be some differences in previous years. We also spent time in the agreed upon procedures. We did that because it's incumbent upon us in our agreement to look at food and beverage, to make sure those revenues are appropriately reported, and also to look at some revenues between the hockey team and the non-hockey events. All of that was looked at. She explained to us how these various months are chosen and how the games are chosen in the random way but appropriate way that they are done. She also went through how the incentive fee, the Predators earned a $2.7 million incentive fee this year, and how that was calculated when we went through those numbers. We also went through the adjusted net operating loss and how the performance fee was calculated. Performance fee, and I'm not sure exactly how much that was, but $544,890 too. So I'd like to report to the board that we do have a clean audit, and we recommend approval of the Bridgestone Arena audit and agreed upon procedures audit.
Is there a motion for approval?
Move it.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any further discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. And thank you for the hard work of the Finance Committee. Margaret and Dudley and Ralph have done a tremendous job serving on the Finance Committee, and thank you very much to Margaret for her leadership and attention to detail. Thank you very much. At this time, we will move on to the consideration of an amendment to the stadium lease for FIFA World Cup. I believe Rich is here with us today. We'll kick off Rich Riebling, the mayor's office, and we also have Butch Spiriton with the CBC with us today to talk us through this update and request.
Good morning. Hope everybody's well today. Appreciate you doing this. So let me start by sort of, I guess, really apologizing for bringing this to you at a last minute. It's never the way we should do business or like to do business, but unfortunately the circumstances sort of created this situation for us. And what we're doing is essentially, it really comes down to sort of one kind of common basic thing, is that if Nashville wants to be considered to go forward for the World Cup application that the U.S. is making, we need to make this, we need to approve this, an agreement, an amendment to the stadium lease agreement. I'll let Butch sort of walk through a little bit of kind of how we got here in terms of with the U.S. soccer and the FIFA, but this is a unique opportunity, we think. I went with Butch and Bob Flynn from the Titans to Houston in late November to meet with U.S. Soccer to sort of hear about sort of the process, how they're going to choose the cities for the application for the World Cup bid. There was 30 cities probably that were involved initially and that were invited to come submit proposals. And from there, we've sort of kept this process moving to the point where bids are due. If you want to participate and be considered as a city, you have to submit by Friday of this week. By Friday of this week, you have to sign the tomorrow. Yeah, you have. And let me say this: you have to sign what they sent. It's not like, well, can we change paragraph 3 to a comma instead of a colon, or it's you sign what they sent you to sign. And so what we're left with is, so do we want to go forward? I think from my perspective, from the city, and I think Butch is the Convention and Visitors Corporation, the World Cup soccer tournament is the biggest event in the world, by far. No disrespect to the Super Bowl and other huge events in this country. This is an international event that is watched by literally billions of people all over the world. The concept is if that we are selected, U.S. has to make application. Morocco, it's a joint application, as Monica pointed out, with Canada and Mexico. So it's a sort of a North American bid. Right now, Morocco is viewed as the only competitor. And so there's a strong feeling that in 2026, the U.S. is going to be given the World Cup. And we feel that if the U.S. gets the World Cup, Nashville ought to be one of the cities they play games. It's not a one-game event. It would probably be 5 or 6 games played in Nashville over a course of the month of June of 2026. So it would bring multiple opportunities for visitors of the various teams, because you would get different teams at every game, obviously. And so as anybody who follows international soccer, there is a huge traveling fan base, especially for this event. And so you would have visitors from all over the world coming to the city throughout the whole month of June. So, Butch, we want to...
Sure. First, brief reminder that some 6 years ago, we went through a similar process, and you all discussed, debated, and approved supporting the bid. The contract this time is a little more onerous than it was the last time, but basically similar in nature. The cities are now down to 17. All 17 cities have to sign the same thing. So you're in good company.
Or bad company.
Yeah, we're all equal. What we do know is what Rich just said, we can't amend this contract. But we assume once the U.S. is awarded, if they are awarded, we'll have a 2-year window to kind of go through what they think we need, if anything, and an opportunity to say we're all in, or no, we're not of a mind to do that for you. And then they have to decide, okay, fine, or we're going to take Nashville out. So we have a second bite of the apple, but we don't have any option right now to get to the finish line and then debate and negotiate. So it's the good news. U.S. has assured us that they're not going to hang us out. I threw some pretty tough questions at them. They went to Geneva, because this also says any disputes would be resolved in the Swiss courts. And I said, so if I'll use this. If they told us we had to put a roof on the stadium, I can tell you right now what the answer is. So they said, well, we use that as an example, and the Swiss court said we would throw that out. That's not a suable, if that's a correct word. I'll ask all the lawyers in the room. And a suable offense. So we feel good where the U.S. is. They've assured us if we can't get comfortable in that 2-year window that we have after this, that they would cut us loose. They've also said repeatedly they want a couple surprise cities in the bid, in the final hosting, and they specifically looked at Rich and myself and said, you know, without saying Nashville, they said Nashville. They're very high on this market. The MLS movement, to your point earlier about how fast we ascended, is further evidence of where we rank in terms of desirability. And it is, certainly from my case, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for this city. And apologize for how, this is the city's contract. Just to show you're not alone. The Titans, the airport, the city, the list goes on of where we have some very difficult contracts. And unfortunately, it is what it is, but we're in good company with 17 cities.
I think what, just to probably turn to Margaret, to ask Margaret to kind of help me explain what it is we have to do, but sort of in the way I would explain it is, obviously for Nashville to be a city, you have to use the stadium, right? I mean, they got to have the football stadium, which is part of the Titans, Cumberland Sports, I never get the names right, Cumberland Stadium, Inc. Thank you, Margaret. And so the Titans obviously have to be a party to this as the operator of the stadium, and the agreement, the way it's written, you know, and so they have to sign the agreement. And for the Titans to be comfortable to sign this agreement, they basically need the assurance that the city is going to back them up and cover costs and things that basically shouldn't be their responsibility, that should be the city, and how we do that, we'll have to figure that out between now and then, between Butch's organization and the city. But basically they need, and I don't disagree with this, they need the protection that you know, they're not going to be expected to have to make these changes that FIFA might require. And so the stadium lease essentially does that, and Margaret can, you know, a little more specific.
So the amendment number 6 to the stadium lease essentially takes those obligations and puts them on the Sports Authority and ultimately Metro to determine the funding for any sort of improvements that might be needed, or any sort of other FIFA expenses, which is a defined term under this amendment. The amendment also, and I probably expanding on from this, but the amendment also would eliminate the FIFA dates from the Titans' current exclusive dates, so that they would still have the same number of dates that they get to use the facility for whatever events they have, on top of all of the FIFA dates.
If I could, first let me thank the Titans. They have been great partners working through this step by step, and obviously part of the last minute is, good news is they've been a little distracted making the playoffs and going to the second round. So great partners and supportive all the way through, as has the CMA. So we have been in deep conversation with the CMA. They're excited about this opportunity. They are willing to be flexible on dates, venues, whatever it needs, and we've assured them that they are a priority. They will not be shortchanged on any level because they're an annual event. They're a huge event, and they're a great partner to us. So they're in lockstep with us and very supportive, as have the Titans been.
As you might know, the dates, June, are right in the middle of the traditional CMA festival date. So they have gotten comfortable with the concept of moving forward and waiving their option for 26 if necessary in order to make this happen.
And if it helps, Margaret, we made the short list for Women's Final Four today. So just thought I'd throw that in.
And we also made, for good or bad, depending on your judgment, we also made the 20 short list for Amazon's headquarters. Announced that today too. So I don't know if this is all good news or depends on your perspective about Nashville's future, but things are happening in Nashville.
Excellent. Questions?
This is to you, Margaret. Okay. But She probably looked to you. This all looks like to me about funding, where we as a public body are saying we will pay the Titans back their expenses. Is that right? Is that what this is?
Yes, it
All right.
is,
So I don't think
primarily.
that the Sports Authority can commit public funds.
Well,
So tell me how that, we don't have any funds. So tell me how that works.
that's correct. I think the understanding here, and Rich can jump in, is that Metro would provide some funding source, whatever that may be. And it, like I think Butch was saying, there's that 2-year period after this where we can, if the funding doesn't exist, we can get out. But Metro would be the ones to provide the funding source. So it would be, I guess,
So it is
contingent upon
subject to, any obligations
funding
that we
availability.
vote is subject to funding appropriated by Metro or another source,
yes,
right?
securing some sort of funding source. Correct.
So, I mean, is there a problem with putting that in our resolution?
In the resolution, no. I don't think that there is a problem. You have to. The thing here is that we are not, the Sports Authority is not the entity that is signing the stadium agreement with FIFA or the bid group. The Titans are. So the Titans want to make sure that they are not going to be responsible for any of the stadium improvements that are otherwise required by FIFA.
Oh, I understand that. I
Okay.
just think that where I am uncomfortable, and of course I want to get the World Cup, but as a body, when I read this, I feel like the Sports Authority is saying that it will reimburse the Titans, and the Sports Authority can't commit public funds.
The Sports Authority does not currently have funding and accounts to do that, but I believe that the administration has, will find a funding source to pay
Right.
for that. So I would turn that over to Rich.
Burke Nihil from the Titans. If I could just point out one other thing too. I look at this a little bit differently as, yes, obviously there's money that's going to have to be found if FIFA asks for things. The lease already requires that the Sports Authority cover and reimburse the Titans for capital expenses. There's just some hoops that we have to jump through to show that it's similar to comparable facilities, for example, and first-class standards. We're not making a judgment if FIFA tells us that we have to make some modifications to the stadium. We have to do what FIFA tells us under our contract. So what we're trying to do with this amendment is just say, if FIFA asks us to do it, we don't have to jump through those hoops to say, this is a reimbursable capital expense. As the lease already requires, this is something that the Sports Authority would be bound to cover. And just to be really clear, we are being asked tomorrow to sign an irrevocable binding document, 100% owing those responsibilities to FIFA. So from our perspective, to have future contingencies out there, that leaves us exposed to the possibility of having to do these things that FIFA would request. So we would have some discomfort if there were contingencies built into the amendment.
Well, I understand your capital amendment, and I know that there are certain presumptions in that agreement that says certain expenses at any amount is a capital expense. So I kind of get your agreement. I don't have any problem with reimbursing the Titans as long as I just want to know whether if I wanted a provision in there that said subject to funding being appropriated by Metro, the appropriate source, is that an acceptable amendment to this process?
From a legal perspective, yes. From a practical perspective, I think you need to listen. I think Burke makes a good point. I wanted to point out also that currently under the lease for capital expenses and capital expenditures that the lessor, the Sports Authority, is obligated to pay. While we have a capital fund set up that Metro appropriates $1 million to every year, our obligation is not limited to that $1 million.
Absolutely.
So it's any sort of expense,
Right.
even though we don't have the current funding for it, we would rely on Metro to provide that funding source.
To put it maybe differently, if FIFA asks for something, chances are the lease already requires that the Sports Authority is required to pay it under our lease. There are just subtle, slight gaps, and so what we're trying to do is close those gaps, given that because we make the judgment under the lease what investments we're looking to make, and we can come to you in advance and look for approval, and if there's any sort of discussion to be had, we can do that before we spend the money. In this case, we are signing tomorrow, giving FIFA the authority to make some of those decisions for the purposes of their event. So having had these conversations.
Tell me what it is that you don't think the lease already provides that you couldn't just with what we currently have.
I think one of the primary examples would be things that relate to this tie back to comparable facilities. There's a test for first class. The Sports Authority would cover capital expenses required to keep the facility in first class condition, and that first class condition is a definition that ties back to comparable facilities. There are 8 or 9 facilities that are specifically listed as comparable facilities. There's the NFL stadiums in Charlotte and Tampa Bay. There's some baseball stadiums. It's possible that FIFA would ask for features that aren't actually at those stadiums because maybe they're soccer specific. They're cutting edge. It could be that there would be things that they would ask for, and when we do the analysis, the Sports Authority would legitimately be able to look at our lease and say, I don't know that this is something that's in comparable facilities. I don't think that we're required to pay it.
So is that a problem to say it's subject to funding? Because this is a total funding amendment. Is that a problem for the bid?
I'm our lawyer. I don't make the final commercial decisions, but I would understand our ownership being uncomfortable signing tomorrow, making firm commitments to FIFA to do things that are contingent on other dominoes falling into place down the line. Because we're making an irrevocable commitment, so if that funding ultimately doesn't come, we are still the ones that are on the hook, and we owe that to FIFA. We owe those obligations to FIFA. And so Sports Authority ultimately can't get the funding,
well,
then it's out of our...
Do you think legally we can bind the city when we don't have any money?
I think this is a modification to the current lease structure, which, as Margaret pointed out, there's a funding mechanism under the lease, but just if the funding mechanism doesn't cover the capital expenses that the Sports Authority is required to reimburse, it's still an obligation of the Sports Authority. So,
Margaret, I get your issue, and I'm sympathetic because I mean ultimately. Ultimately, the city is going to have to approve through some funding mechanism. Right. If there are any costs, the city is going to have to approve this. Clearly, we don't have the ability to get that done between now and Friday, tomorrow, to get that done. It seems to me that, obviously, I guess what we're asking is nobody likes the way this is coming about. I get that, but the city wants to stay in the game for this bid, and I don't want to be onerous on our partners because I think they have tried to do what they can. I mean, they've got to protect themselves as well in this process, and so I don't know how to. I can't answer your. I mean, I get the issue. I had a conversation with your seatmate next to you on similar issues, and that's and I thought I wish I had gone to better law school classes and had studied harder to be able to argue my point better than I did.
I understand.
But we are at a just to be very candid, we're asking you to do something that is something that we shouldn't ask you to do. But it's critical in order to move forward in this process, and I think that based on our past history, we're going to fix this down the road and make sure that everyone is protected and the city does what it says it's going to do. But that doesn't make it better today. I understand it. I'm sympathetic. I just don't know how to. There's no other way to answer it.
Rich and I guess Butch too. You both mentioned, and I understand it has to move forward today. I'd love to have the World Cup here, but obviously the way FIFA went about its last several citing decisions, it's questionable. We have talked a little bit more about the 2 years under which we can, or the city, not us, the city, can decide whether or not FIFA's requirements on us are unreasonable and decide to back out? How might that work, and tell us more about
So
that.
as I understand it, and help me out, and Butch, if you want, is that sometime this summer, the city is going to be, the country is going to be named. So FIFA is going to make a decision in sometime this summer that it's going to be the North America bid or Morocco. It's my understanding those are the only two active possible proposals. And so from that time, once if assuming the U.S. and North Mexico and Canada are named, then from summer of 18 to 2020 is when they will work with the cities and determine which 10, 12 cities in the U.S. are going to be submitted to FIFA. And so there'll be obviously give and take back and forth between the U.S. and FIFA. Obviously FIFA's going to want New York and, LA maybe or whatever, and that's when that process will be done. And so I think really until 2020 when the cities are named, I think clearly, while the agreement doesn't expressly say that, I think clearly if you don't want to do it, you just say we're not going to do it, and what are they going to do to you? I mean, they can't make you play soccer games. I mean, effectively, I guess they could.
I'd add one other point that if the U.S. is awarded, then the U.S. bid committee becomes the host committee, and they become FIFA's agent. So we would be dealing with them. And my experience over the last 6 years, they have been honorable, they have been respectful, they have listened, they have as flexible as they could have been, they have been, and they understand. We have had all these conversations with them already. So they understand what we're facing, and I feel good about talking with the U.S. host committee. And if it was just FIFA, I'd be a little more concerned.
I feel better with your explanation.
Okay.
They have, by the way, just made a major part of the presentation when we met with them in Houston was about how they've cleaned up their act, just for what it's worth.
That would be good.
Do you have any reason to believe at this time that what they would require in stadium modifications would be unreasonable? That's my first question. Then my second question is, if you assume we've got 2 years to make a final decision, would the Titans be willing to, if the city said, we don't like this, we don't want to go forward with this under these conditions, would the Titans be agreeable to calling that lease amendment, to voiding the lease amendment under those circumstances? Because you are the one signing the contract.
You're the ones who insist.
Certainly, we'd be willing to void the amendment if Nashville is ultimately not selected as a host city. And to their point, it's a binding. We are making a binding, irrevocable offer to FIFA that would really, in theory, if we said no, don't pick us over the next 2 years, they could select us. But as I've understood, the U.S. committee ultimately puts together their list of recommendations to FIFA, which is usually supported by FIFA. And if we told the U.S. to take us off the list, they would leave us off the list. So it's unlikely that if over the next 2 years everyone changed their mind and we made that known, that we'd be selected. In terms of making the amendment conditional, I did talk to Margaret this morning, and to be really clear, no question we'd be willing to make that amendment conditional on Nashville ultimately be named a host city.
What do you mean by irrevocable offer?
It's an
It
irrevocable.
seems like, because I'm asking now what you just said, it seems like that you could go ahead and sign this without the Sports Authority doing this amendment. And if you didn't get the assurances that you needed afterwards, then couldn't you withdraw the offer?
It's a good question, and that's part of why this has become a fire drill, because that's what our intention was for the last 2 or 3 weeks. We thought that we would modify. We've got a document much like this. It's a little bit thicker, that describes itself as an irrevocable offer. And we envisioned sending something with a cover sheet saying, here are some additional conditions on our irrevocable offer, and one of them was getting the support of the Sports Authority and the city. We were still working through things with CMA. We've got a commitment to allow CMA to have their event that summer. So as of 3 or 4 days ago, that's absolutely what our intent was. We were told 2 days ago, unequivocally, we have to sign that, send it in, it is irrevocable, that's it. We are committed to FIFA.
So that means you can't back out.
Exactly. And what they're saying is, what they're saying, what we're hearing from the U.S. Soccer Federation is that ultimately over the next 2 years, so what's happening currently is the U.S. and Mexico and Canada are submitting their bid to be awarded the games. The host city's selection process takes another 2 years. So they need to have everyone who's a candidate for a host city now so that FIFA can review that while they're making the selection. But the next 2 years will be the host city selection process. If during that time, there's no question, our offer remains irrevocable to FIFA, and FIFA could say, regardless of the recommendation of the U.S. Soccer Federation, and regardless of the fact that you're telling us you're not going to do a good job and everything else, we're still going to select you. That could happen. It's irrevocable. But what we're hearing from the U.S. Soccer Federation is if we decide against it, if we don't want it, then the chances of our getting it are, minimal.
And you're saying that the Titans do not have faith, like we're being asked to have faith, that the city will give you the money if we get the bid. So you want this amendment. Is that right?
What I'm saying is if we're making an irrevocable offer to FIFA that has some blank check qualities to it, if this is a citywide initiative, we are excited about the possibility and excited about our role in that possibility. But if it's irrevocable for us and it's binding for us, that as a group, we shouldn't be standing on our own.
This amendment binds the city and therefore the council and whatever to have to pay you back, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman, I will move adoption of the amendment as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
We need to be able to do a couple of amendments to the amendment. There have been some changes that came this morning that are not in the packet before you. And I can go over those couple of changes if you'd like. Okay.
We're going to vote.
One of the big changes is that we have added content.
Can we make sure everyone has it in front of them in the packet?
I don't know that it is.
It's behind tab 6.
Okay.
Okay.
6 in your packet.
The original one.
This is the one that came in last night.
The one, okay. There have been some changes that have been made this morning, and I thought we would have copies, but they're not here yet. So one of the big changes throughout the amendment is that it is contingent upon the award or the choosing of Nashville as a host city. If Nashville is not chosen as a host city, then the amendment basically is kind of null. Let's see, one of the
We
other.
won't know that for the next 2 years? The next 2 years?
Which class?
Whether or not Nashville's selected as a...
Yeah, I think they said 2020.
End of 2020, we would know, if not before.
You'll probably have a good sense of where we're going.
So, give me 1 second. I have a copy of some changes. So that's throughout the amendment. Some language indicating that if it's not chosen, then the elements of this amendment don't have any effect, really. FIFA expenses are added. Let's see. What did we do under? 1 second. Sorry. Okay, that's if it's chosen. Under the FIFA fund amount, there's some schedule about depositing money into the FIFA fund. Again, that's something that will be determined at a later date as to how it's funded. Under the section 4, under the FIFA reimbursement request, there's that time period has been changed from 90 days to 120 days, and that's to allow for any sort of appropriations that may need to happen after a request is made. Another kind of general idea in here is that if the Titans are reimbursed by FIFA through the rental fee or through some other mechanism for expenses that we may have already paid for, the Titans will reimburse us to that same level. Again, not applicable if the World Cup doesn't come to Nashville. And then under FIFA expense, that's another element, and then a definition of World Cup games. So there are a couple of amendments in here, and I would suggest to the board, or recommend to the board, that you approve it as amended. approve the amendment as amended.
I will,
Do you have any questions?
I will make the motion that we approve the amended amendment to the lease.
So you're withdrawing your original
I
motion?
withdraw my
and
original motion,
the new motion
substituting that.
is, and approving the amended amendment as articulated by our council. We have a motion.
I second.
Motion and second. Is there further discussion? Yes.
Please.
Yes,
I think it'll be
please.
quick. Do you know how many host cities? Is it 8, 12?
There are 17 now. They will choose between 10 and 12 at the end of the day. So part of the question is, 5 are going by the wayside. So they're not going to drag one in that doesn't want to be in if they have 12 that want to be in.
And Mexico City could be one of
Those
the
are
12?
those are U.S. cities.
US
Those are
cities.
U.S.
Mexico and Canada are in addition to the U.S. cities.
Okay. And does the FIFA fund need money in it if they don't identify capital improvements that need to be made?
They're paying rent, and
There could potentially be some operating costs that are not covered?
Yes.
Yeah. So there potentially could be something besides capital expense.
And we are building in that we're building in operating costs that we can predict today. The only things that, just to give you an example of something that could come to mind, this is a huge event. Stadium security has become a huge deal. If there's some sort of stadium equipment rental that they require that costs a material amount of money that we can't foresee today, that's addressed in the amendment as well. But run-of-the-mill operating expenses, we're working through getting that from FIFA.
Any further questions?
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
One no. Okay. All right, we have a majority voting in support with one no, so motion carries. And thank you for coming and explaining. Okay.
Can't believe I went on record in this world of soccer. I think I sent a
At this time, we figure out where we are. Now we're at the facilities questions portion of our agenda. Any other facilities who are not presenting today, if our board has any questions for our facility partners, this would be the time. Seeing none, we will move on to Ford Ice Center report. Danny Butler is here with us, and I saw our friend Scott Hamilton with us, and Scott is the ambassador of Ford Ice Center. We are pleased to have Scott here today, and also noticed we have a copy of his book here, and real quick, I'd just like to say too, Scott put on the Scott Hamilton Cares event at Bridgestone Arena in December, and it was fantastic. It was my first year to attend, and just really thank you for all that your organization does. Hopefully you'll give us a chance, take a chance to update us on that event and others, and thank you for being here. Danny?
Thanks, Kim. Danny Butler, General Manager of Ford Ice Center. I was going to introduce Scott, but you went ahead and did it for me. First, I apologize for the noise downstairs with school being out. We're busy, so there's a lot of people here,
We
which
like
is
it.
it's a good thing, but I apologize for that noise. So I do want to introduce Scott. You kind of did everything for me, but Scott's a 4-time national champion, 4-time world champion, Olympic gold medalist. Scott partnered with us 4.5 years ago before we opened, I think, and committed to helping us grow figure skating. The first class Scott ever taught was on that rink over there. I think there was 4 kids in the class, and all he did was teach them to fall down. So Scott's really been a part of what we've done since we opened. So I'm going to let Scott speak for a few minutes, and then we have a couple other speakers and a short little video. So, Scott?
Thank you, boss. This has been a gift like no other to be associated with the Predators in this way and this phenomenal facility. I think it started off somewhat as a civic experiment to add infrastructure to the fastest growing and most diverse city in Nashville, which is Antioch. And it's been an unbelievable experience. Again, as Danny alluded to, when we first sold our classes, it was actually before the official opening, and we had 4 registered students, and we were kind of looking at each other going, okay, how's this going to work? Well, last year we had over 1,000 skaters come through our program. This year we're already at 700. We have 52 3-year-olds on Saturdays, which is, as Paula Trujillo calls it, cats in a bathtub. We've won every award and every recognition there is from U.S. Figure Skating. We've just recently announced our newest program, which is our All-Stars program, which is funded by the Prudential Skating Fund through U.S. Figure Skating. It's a grant that's going to help us build a special needs program for skaters with intellectual disability. We had our first classes, and Roman Yossi was kind enough to come out and skate with our skaters and show his support. We've held figure skating competitions here. Our first one, we just sort of did a flash competition where we figured, let's just see how it'll work. And we had 83 skaters our first year. And in our second year, we had 265 skaters. Growth opportunities are amazing. In our first invitational, we had the president of U.S. Figure Skating come and judge for us. And the first thing he did when he came in from the airport was to stand right over there, take one quick look around, and ask if we'd bid on the regionals, which is the first qualifying competition of the Olympic year. We said we had not, and he said, I highly recommend you do. And so we were awarded the Eastern Great Lakes Regional Championships, where we had over 500 skaters from 8 different states competing. We need more ice. Our growth has been so spectacular that the need for more ice surfaces is beyond description. Bellevue will be opening soon, and we expect that to be at capacity year 1. As you alluded to, the second annual CARES Gala, where we had Olympic and world champion skaters coming in, where we also had our local skaters as part of that program, fundraising through our Skate to Eliminate Cancer program. We had, how many skaters were in that, Paula? 35 skaters. And it was a thrill to see them skating to live music and being right smack dab in the middle of that show. We've really learned that skating builds community in a very unique way. There is no demographic that we don't touch in some way or shape or form. If I see parents, I call them glass suckers, when they're up against the glass watching every moment their children are participating in our classes, I say, why aren't you out there? And generally over a few weeks, I'll shame them into joining our classes. And, we have everything from 3-year-olds to 70-year-olds participating in our Learn to Skate, and again, every description of human being possible. Our plan is to build NHL players and World Olympic champion skaters. We're doing this organically, we're doing it locally, we're doing it by one skater at a time, now 1,000 skaters in a year plus. And we have coaches from all over the United States begging us to invite them to be part of our staff. One in particular I covet, and I'm really hopeful that we'll entice her to move here this year. Again, U.S. Figure Skating is our biggest fan. They love us. They love everything that we're doing. And for me, it's just, I just look at the possibilities of Nashville and being an ice-based community. There's not been one other facility that has generated more excitement and more interest in skating than the Ford Ice Center in the United States. It's truly been a success story like no other. So while you're sitting here contemplating, next moves and, what that means, maybe the U.S. Figure Skating Championships in 2022. You haven't had one since '98, and I think that was a pretty good success. And maybe World Championships, World Figure Skating Championships 2026, just planting a seed. But generally, I'll leave you this. We need more ice. because skating and hockey, my son, my youngest, just went over to the other side. He started over here, which is kind of the figure skating side, and now he's over on the hockey side, and he cannot get enough of it. And I'm just so blessed that the city decided to build this facility. I feel so blessed that the Predators have invited me to be a part of their vision. And I thank you for the work you're doing in our community to elevate sports and to celebrate, everything that we love so much, which is, excellence in our youth and in our professional athletes. So thank you for hearing me out, and thank you for allowing me to be here. And boss, back to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Scott. Hey, the one number, I'm going to hit on a couple things later, but the one number he talked about, we had over 1,000 registered skaters last year through U.S. Figure Skating. I think our number was closer to 1,900. There's only 10 other rinks in the entire country that had over 1,000 skaters registered. So that's how small that number is and how.
We're big. We're big.
So, and those are rinks that have been around for 20 or 30 years. We're bigger than the Detroit Figure Skating Club, which only focuses on figure skating, which is truly an honor of what Paula has done and what Scott has done in the community. Next up, Dan Casimir has been with the organization since the day we started. He was truly an original Pred. We've used Dan the last probably 3.5 years now since we opened to really help grow youth hockey in the market. Dan has been a part of the Little Preds program, which I've talked about before, which plays in 8 different states and mainly out of Fort Ice Center. But Dan's kind of been a part of that since the All-Star game when we launched it. So I want Dan to talk a little bit about the growth of youth hockey. So Dan Casimir.
Board members, thank you for letting me come up here and speak about the topic of growth of hockey in Nashville. I apologize in advance. Chris Mason was choice number 1. He was supposed to be up here. He's got a conflict with his permanent job with TV with the Preds, so he had production meetings. But I think that I'm going to be better served for this subject since I have been here from day one. And taking a walk down memory lane 20 years ago, I reluctantly did not want to be in Nashville. At the time, I was in Dallas. That year, Dallas went on to win the Stanley Cup, and I got traded from Dallas to Nashville in 1999 at the tail end of the inaugural year. I say that because of basically ignorance, because I had never been to Nashville. 20 years later, my curse is the greatest blessing for me and my family I could have ever asked for. I've raised 2 kids, K through 12. My daughter graduated from UT. With the aspect of growth, I've not only experienced it, but I've been an actual part of it through my son. He started playing hockey when he was 4, right after I retired in 2000, 2001. So I've been a part of the growth in Nashville, and I can remember when I first got involved, there was 5 or 6 high school hockey teams. When I finished coaching in Ravenwood 2 years ago, it was upwards to 18 to 20. So that exponential growth has been pretty neat to see. As far as the Little Preds programs go, like Danny said, I've been involved since they started right after the All-Star game. It was kind of like a test pool that every NHL team in the league was going to have a little, either Red Wings, Islanders, Preds. And what I do is, there's 5 states that we do this little Preds program, and it's 4, 5, 6, and 7-year-olds. And it's we're over in, as far as Arkansas, Kentucky, Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. So I work with these little kids on a monthly basis for the last 2.5 years. And what I see in Nashville is it's a great program that I wish that we've had here for the last 20 years. But these little kids get free equipment and free ice. I think that there may be a cost of $99 now in some areas, but the problem that we've got, like Scotty said, is that we don't have enough ice for these kids to then transition into programs that we need, to have for, the amateur programs and in high school programs. So I guess in a perfect world, I'd love to see more ice sheets throughout the greater Nashville area, whether it's Hendersonville, Murfreesboro. I think it's great that, Bellevue's getting a rink here soon, but that's my take on growth in hockey. It's grown incredibly high since 2000, 2001 when I first got involved. And I just want to know if there's any questions from anybody about the hockey programs. Good?
Just, you've done such an incredible job. It's just been all good, all good.
Well, it's been fun. Like I tell people, when I first came here, we helped build the foundation. I played for the Pretenders, who have now evolved into the Predators, because it's been pretty neat to see. So, thank you, Danny.
We've come a long way from the Dixie Flyers.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. Yeah, and just again to hit a couple numbers. Dan talked about the growth of hockey. Again, we have more players playing just out of Ford Ice Center than Alabama, Arkansas, and Louisiana combined. So more in one center than in 3 different states. So it really is part of what the NHL, NHLPA has done, and Dan and those guys kind of growing the game. Next up, last person speaking before I talk, Nat Harden, who again is truly an original Predator. He started working for the team, I think, the year before they came here, and has been here for 21 years, I guess, 20 years with the team here. So.
Thank you, Board, for having me. My role with the Predators, I wear a lot of different hats. When I started here, I started selling tickets at a kiosk in Cool Springs Mall. And then now I'm work at Ford Ice and work in sales back at Bridgestone Arena, oversee ticket sales and premium sales there. And one of the hats that I wear is new rink development for the team. Since 1998, to put some numbers to the growth, Tennessee is second nationally in growth with 193% in USA hockey membership registration. So as you can see, we've done that with just 5 sheets of ice over that period of time, which is tremendous growth. Because of that, we've developed the Tennessee Rink Development Plan, and our goal is to increase the number of sheets of ice from 5 sheets to 17 by the year 2026. We believe by doing that, it'll create a strong foundation for the franchise long term and really help us to be able to even grow those numbers even greater in the future. We're doing this by working with the NHL and NHLPA and the Industry Growth Fund. The Industry Growth Fund, by definition, is an allocated fund built into the collective bargaining agreement between the NHL and NHLPA that awards a portion of league revenues to specific initiatives to grow the game of hockey. Perfect example of this is new rink development. So we've been fortunate to be a part of this program the last 3 or 4 years, and one of the benefits of this program is what I hope will be the groundbreaking of Bellevue with very, very shortly here soon. So the 2 additional sheets of ice there. Other initiatives through the Industry Growth Fund, Little Preds, which Dan mentioned earlier, and he helps run this program with Cody Hodgson. And it gives kids the opportunity to learn to skate from a Predators alumni and be able to start off their skating career the right way. The Preds Fitness Challenge is another example. This affects over 50,000 students annually per year, where we work through the state of Tennessee's physical education departments at different schools. And we go into schools and we teach the basic rules of hockey, basic skills, and the importance of physical activity. And then the Go Skate program with Scott Hamilton, they head that up. This is a totally free program, learning from the world's best figure skater how to skate, and then at the end of the program, you receive a free pair of skates. So this has really helped contribute to our growth of hockey and the need for more ice in the future. With the continued growth, we have 5 different phases to this Tennessee Rink Development program. And in those phases, we're working with different municipalities throughout the state of Tennessee and different projects. And we're excited about, again, Bellevue opening up here very shortly. It'll keep Danny from having to keep this rink open from 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. every day. So we're looking forward to that. We appreciate the support you guys have given us out here. And we're excited to continue this growth in the future, and we hope to be able to hit this goal by the year of 2026 and really increase those numbers in the future. Are there any questions from the board? Nope. Okay. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for coming today.
Okay. Thanks, Nat. A lot of what Nat talked about is what we've talked about in the past. It's, growing the youth hockey, growing the high school program and the school program, and all those great free events that we've done across the country. Real quick, I want to show a video, just kind of recaps what we've done here the last year, a lot of cool events that we've done, and then I'll be really brief after that, just so we can kind of wrap up, eat some lunch. Go ahead.
What are the hours of operation? Are we still?
Yeah, right now we're opening at 5:30, and we close about 1 o'clock. Our last staff member probably leaves about 2:30 in the morning. It'll adjust a little bit in March as the season ends, but then again in the summer months. And we have every week this summer booked with a camp or tournament, and that includes 4th of July week this year, where that's usually a week we haven't really done anything, so we're extremely busy. So yeah, our hours are still 5:30 to 1. Ish. Yeah. Well, it's fun. I mean, it's all the staff. They're all around here somewhere, so they've all kind of done
awesome.
it. So again, we'll watch this real quick, and then I'll recap for you. Nat, I think you took my notes. So this video really shows kind of the versatility of, I think, what we can do here. A lot of it we had no idea we can do when we first opened, or 4 years ago when you approved us to have this facility. I don't think, at least when I took the job, I didn't know we'd be able to do all these cool things. But a couple things you saw in there. First was the Scott Hamilton All-Stars program. Scott touched on it a little bit. We are extremely excited about this program. It came about through a grant through U.S. Figure Skating at Prudential, where one of our part-time coaches came up with the idea of starting a figure skating program or a learn skate program for youth with intellectual disabilities. Some rinks do it across the country, so we stole a little bit of their model, but we really created our own because we wanted it to be special and all-inclusive. And by all-inclusive, I don't mean just for the youth. We want the parents to be involved. So as part of this program, the youth go through a skating program, a little bit of a hockey program. They do a yoga class, a ballet class, and fun stuff like that. But while they're doing that, we always have something going on for the parents, whether that be a yoga class or a ballet class or a meditation class. So we really wanted to make that all-inclusive. And with this grant, we plan to roll out the program in February. And we really do believe this is something we could take nationwide. It might not be next year, it might not be in 5 years, but with Scott's help and the backing of U.S. Figure Skating and the Preds, I really believe this is a program that we could take nationwide. So we really are very excited and very bullish on this program. And again, Paula and Scott and those guys really did a great job with that. And we were on NBC last week during the U.S. Figure Skating Nationals. That's where that commercial aired. So Fordyce Center got a lot of love nationally with that. Also nationally, up next you saw was PK Subban's Adidas commercial. PK Subban just recently signed with Adidas. So out here he shot his commercial, which will be seen internationally. Kyle Turris practiced out here the first day he was in town, so the first time anybody got to see Turris in a Preds uniform was here at Ford Ice Center. That first 17 games after we signed Turris, Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we went 13-2-2 with an average goals of game 4.2 or something like that. So he's been a pretty impressive addition, and it was fun to see him out here. You saw UGA win the SEC championship. Fortunately, they didn't win the national championship this year, but it was great to have them. And the SEC hockey championship is actually February 10th, so in a couple weeks if you guys want to come back out for that. After that, you saw the Scott Hamilton Invitational, which led into the U.S. Figure Skating Regionals event, which really was kind of the highlight of our year, having that first step of the Olympics out here. From there, we actually had 2 skaters who skated here, who skated at the national event in San Jose 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, neither of them made it to the Olympics, but we do have a great figure skating team that is going to the Olympics in Pyeongchang, which is exciting. Then you saw the Matthias Ekholm Clinic, which is a clinic that we've done since we've opened. The last 3 years it was with James Neal, but with Neal going to the Golden Knights, Matthias Ekholm stepped up immediately and said, this is a program I want to run. That program benefits the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Just for one day, we had 114 kids registered and donated over $15,000 to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So really exciting. Some things you didn't see. Every year we host the GNASH Championship, which is unbelievable. There's more kids than should be in the rink, jumping up and down, screaming, yelling. It's always a lot of fun. I think you guys won it here a couple of years ago, so that was fun. And then also, Chris Lee Knows Best. It's a reality TV show on USA Network. They came out and filmed earlier in October, and that episode just aired in December. So we've done a lot of great things here the past year, so we're really excited about all of that. With that, again, we talked about Learn to Skate, having 1,900 skaters. That is truly impressive. All of our youth leagues are at capacity. It's unfortunate. We're turning kids away, but it really is exciting. You can come here on a Saturday and Sunday. We are jamming all day. We do have a tournament coming up over President's Day weekend with 2 teams that are coming from Finland. So we are truly international in that sense. Just a quick update on Bellevue. Not a whole lot has been done, but we should hopefully have the general contractor selected on that hopefully by the end of January. We'd love to do a groundbreaking in March. And then hopefully we open next Christmas, I think is the plan. These are very rough timings, very rough numbers, but hopefully that is something we're doing. And then finally, we just confirmed this last week. We were able to find some curling equipment, and we're going to host curling through the month of February and through the Olympics. People ask about it all the time. It's probably going to extend our hours a little bit, so we might be open until 2 or 3 in the morning, but I think it'll be a really great event. So we're really excited. We're going to have a free kind of curling event to kind of kick off the Olympics, and then we'll have a lot of curling events throughout. So if we want to set something up for the board, we definitely, and we have everything with it. So we have the rocks, everything you need to have a great curling
I'd like
event.
to sign up as a team.
Perfect, you're in. Write it down, Paula. And then if anybody wants to stay, we do have public skate going on. So if anybody wants to stay, Paula has offered to teach anybody how to ice skate after this. She promises when you're done, you won't break your wrist, and you'll know how to do some spins. That's all I have. Are there any questions about what we do, how we're growing, what we need to do, what you like to see? Nothing?
I think we're seeing it.
All right. We got you some winter hats, Scott's book. Thank you again for coming out. I really appreciate it. Again, I apologize about the noise, but it's a good noise, so thank you. Thank you.
January is the authority's annual meeting and month that we elect our officers. So elections will be held for chair, vice chair, and secretary. Officers also make up our executive committee. Nominations can be taken from the floor, and you may nominate an individual or slate of candidates. Nominations do not need a second. Is there any other procedural?
Who are our officers? Current officers.
I'll be glad to kick it off and renominate our current officers, Kim Adkins as chair, Kathy Bender as vice chair, and Emmett Wynn as secretary treasurer.
Second.
I guess it's.
You should turn it over to
Someone.
to take the vote to Ralph,
Well,
perhaps.
Ralph has made the motion.
Perhaps Lisa.
Discussion.
motion maker.
Any further nominations from the floor? Hearing none, all in favor of the nominations of our current officers, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Congratulations, Madam Chair, officers.
Thank you. appreciate that vote of confidence, and thank you for the opportunity to serve. It's definitely a pleasure to work with everyone on this board, and look forward to working with our new board member. I do want to take a moment and recognize and thank Ralph Perry, not just because he nominated me to serve as chair again, but Ralph has served on this body for 12 years, 2 full terms, and his term ends in February, and because Ralph is a rock star and taking on so much and is expected in so many places, unfortunately he is not asked to be reappointed due to other commitments, but we have taken a lot of your time for the last 12 years, and I think I've been in a little denial that you're not coming back. I just want to thank you. You are a tremendous friend to all of us. You are a gifted communicator. You always know what to say and the right way to say it, and thank you. You are going to be missed.
Thank you very much. It's always an honor when you're given the opportunity to serve your community. I've had the opportunity to work with 3 mayors, some great Metro staff, representatives of all of our sports teams, and of course some very valued colleagues here on this board. We've really gotten some important work done for the community, and I'm glad to have helped that along a little bit. I'll remain a big fan of our teams, and I'll follow your work with interest, though not to the point of watching it on Channel 3 late at night. Thank you all very much. I'm honored.
Thank you, Ralph. Our next board meeting will be on February 15th. It will be at 10:30, and it will be hosted at Bridgestone Arena. We do plan on the Finance Committee meeting before. Speaking of committees, we will send out a survey of Monica and her team will send out an email to board members asking your interest to serve on various committees for 2018, and please leave your binders so they can be recycled. And Monica, do you have anything? I think we have a
couple of notes that we're going to just check. Merriweather and Coach Starks are a little under the weather, and so we just have a little note. If you just would sign it before you leave, we can pass those around. Let them know we're thinking of them.
Great. So Monica will pass those around, and if there is no other business, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.